easy it is to take, you can know these links. How much of it can you put in literature, the liberty that you take? Would you agree that you can take it perhaps with your writings on Hinduism than other religions? That that you can perhaps get away, or people will encourage, or people will be more than happy to read your books if you're taking and making a link in your books that has Hinduism in it compared to other religions?
No, it's not that, because after all, when I started out writing the Rosabal line,
yes,
the Rosabal line was not a book that I planned to write. People think that we as writers go out looking for stories. Actually, stories come looking for us. So that was a story that came looking for me. And in the heart of Srinagar, there is a grave, there is a tomb. That tomb has stood there from roughly 112 AD. So 2000 years old. And ostensibly the person buried there, Pooja, is a Muslim Peer by the name of Nasiruddin. That is a 13th, 14th century burial. But what is fascinating about that tomb is that beneath the body of Nasiruddin, there is an earlier burial. And that is not in an Islamic direction, which is north-south. It is in an east-west direction, which used to be the direction of an ancient Jewish burial. And outside the tomb, there is a carving which shows a pair of human feet. And those human feet have little cross marks on them, which are indications of where the nails for a crucifixion would have been hammered. So it is commonly believed that Isa Masih came there and settled down. Now, the mere fact that I am writing about that then raises a question on the resurrection.
Yes.
So the point is that if you say that there is a possibility that I could only be writing about Hinduism, that's not true. So I end up getting bashed from all sides.
You do? Do you get?
Yeah. So that.
How difficult is it when you want to write the sort of writings you did? Because I know in my experience that even a certain liberal ecosystem will encourage you more, perhaps, if you're willing to criticize the caste discrimination in Hinduism. But if you talk about other religions, there's a pushback.
Absolutely. If you criticize the caste system, then you get sort of somewhat in terms of the... Yeah, absolutely. Yes. But if you try and do the same thing with, let's say, religion, then probably the outcome will be slightly different.
You're sophisticatedly sidelined sometimes, but you have managed to bring on all religions. In today's time, when there's so much talk about secularism, writing on religion, everyone seems to be writing on religion. Is there or when I say everyone, is in a lot of India narrative, so to say, is coming about. Is there an overload of the sort of writings that are coming in on Indian narrative or Hindu narrative, or is it an overcompensating of perhaps not being written about much in the past? How do you see the trend that is there?
If you really, I started writing in 2005 and I published my first novel in 2008. But I am probably one of the most rejected novelists, with 47 literary agents and publishers having said, thank you, but no thank you.
47 rejections?
47. Now, the point is why? The reason is that the publishing industry was not ready for the sort of stories that I wanted to tell. And I think that has been a fundamental problem. It's only in the last, I would say, decade or so that Indian writing is the writing that tends to dominate the bestseller lists. If you remember going into bookstores 15 years ago, you would realize that it was the usual suspects, the Dan Browns and the Jeffrey Archers and the Frederick Fawcett's, which were right there on the top of the bestseller charts. So I think there has been a change where, and I think my dear friend, probably Chetan Bhagat, has a lot to do with it, because that change which happened in terms of suddenly realizing
Indian
that you
writing
can have Indian writing which sells in lakhs. That was an unheard of phenomenon. You always had the Surendra Mohan Pathaks who sold in lakhs, but you didn't have English writers who sold in those numbers. So I think that change has undoubtedly happened.